Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Max Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So we're on episode 444. There's a lot of content ahead of this one. If you're a new listener, a lot of people like just go back, start at episode 1 and work their way up. Those first few episodes were 8-10 minutes, most of them, fairly short, and then they got longer as time went by. But I started out making those podcasts short because I wanted to get a lot of podcasts out in a hurry, so new listeners would have some content to listen to. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed last week's episode where I had a great conversation with Andy Garver at Pullman Services. If you haven't listened to that episode, make sure you go back and check it out. And I highly recommend to go to the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel and check out the Blue Collar Leadership playlist, which is titled Real People Getting Real Results. And you can actually watch Andy's interview. All these Real People Getting Real Results podcasts are also in video format, if you didn't know that and you're a new listener. So let's get to today. Let's get back in the grind and get back in the series on Rhea's book. My wife, Rhea, she wrote The Ladder of Influence, 5 Steps for Climbing to the Next Level and Beyond. So today's part 11 of that series, actually chapter 10, because I had to throw an intro in at the beginning. This episode is titled Character is Developed Daily, Not in a Day. You ain't going to change much about your character in a day, but you can change a lot daily, meaning cumulative over time. It's going to take you a while. Character doesn't shift quickly. Whoever you are today is who you are today. If you want to start changing, you can get to work on it, but you got to do something every day. It's about becoming someone different than you are today. That kind of change doesn't typically happen. Very rarely is that kind of change going to happen where one day somebody's character is one way and the next day somebody's character is a completely different way. It can happen. There's some pretty profound things that can happen in a person's life to cause a drastic change in a hurry. But for most of us, that's not going to happen. We got to work slowly and methodically, continuously, consistently, intentionally over time. And it'll happen as the days and the weeks and the months and the years pass by. You'll be someone different. And I know, because I'm one of those people. I've been doing it since 2008. So 17 years of it happening daily is what happened to me. Anybody that knows me before 2008, or even into I'd say probably up until 2012, even though I started growing in 2008, I didn't get some real traction until 2012. I started getting a little traction, but finally it built up enough where 2012 I started getting some really amazing results. But it didn't happen because of something that happened at one specific time. It's what's been happening in the previous 4 years. So if you want to read about my transformation, go check out my book, 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation, How to Become Your Best Self. And you'll get a roadmap on how to do this for yourself, a mental roadmap, how to think your way through personal transformation. Or if you know someone who might need that, check that out. And I've also got a series on it I've shared with you in this series about that series. I think it starts around episode 158 or 159. Got a 11-part series on that book. So let's dive into this episode. Chapter 10 is titled Climbing to the Second Step. And remember, the second step is character development. First step was control of self. And we talked about 5 chapters on that, 5 episodes. And now we diving into the second of 5 episodes relative to climbing to the second step, which is character development. So let's go ahead and dive into this thing. So Rhea says, character can change over time with growth, but it's not going to change very much from day to day, which is what I was just talking about a minute ago. Character development is a lot of people need it. A lot of people realize they need it, and they realize they need it today. And guess what? It ain't going to happen today. So you can be proactive and get to work on your character, which is what I hope you're doing as you listen to this series. And what's going to happen is there are going to be problems you would have had in the future that you're never going to have. And then there's going to be problems that you do have in the future that won't be near as bad as they would have been if you hadn't started working on yourself. You're going to learn how to lead yourself well. You're going to learn how to interact with others in a completely different way at a completely different level. Every bit of your character development is going to make you better at dealing with the world. The world ain't going nowhere. It's coming. You just keep living and it keeps coming. Problems keep coming. So I'm proud of you for being proactive. Listen to this series. So Rhea talks about this. I'm going to share. She's got some great quotes in the chapter. I'm going to pull a few of those quotes out and talk to you as I go through them and spark a little thought with me so I can give you some more content. But Rhea says to get different results when it comes to influence, we must develop ourselves. And for many of us, the thought of dramatic change can be scary. There's some people, they just don't want to change, and that's why. They're scared of change. They won't tell you that, but they'll show you that. And how they show you that is they don't change. Everybody can get better. Everybody. It don't matter how good they are today or how bad they are today. They could get better. So Rhea shares a quote in her book in this chapter 10. It's called, it's written by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. He's got some great books, and I can't remember. He talks about one that talks about attachment and how there's different levels of attachment. I think he talks about 5 levels, and that's a powerful little book. And I need to reread it again. It's been a while since I read it, but I really liked it. So this quote is from Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. He says, when we place ourselves in a safety zone where we feel comfortable and secure, and we are firmly entrenched in the "this is who I am" mindset, the worst thing imaginable is that it will all go away. That's pretty powerful. And what he's talking about, the key point in that whole quote is when you're entrenched in a "this is who I am" mindset. And I used to be that way. That is exactly how I used to be when I was an idiot. I thought that's just the way I am. This is who I am. It's in my genes. I was born this way. Why do I have to be this way? But when I would think that, I'd think, well, that's just the way I am. That's just the way I am. I said that so many times. I probably said it out loud to people. When I was having conflict with people or whatever, I'd be saying, that's just the way I am. And it was the way I was. But what I didn't realize way back in those days was I could change it. And I needed to change it. And at some point, I was going to change it. But I didn't know all that back then. That was years before I ever discovered personal growth and leadership development content in 2008. So let's talk about 3 questions. And Rhea did this, our books, 90 pages. Most of our books are 90 pages, 30 chapters, 3 pages per chapter. And a lot of people think, well, these are little books. They may be little books, but they're full of big ideas. And I'm telling you, one of these ideas on any given page, if you take it and implement it, it's worth far more than the value of the cost of a book. So let me talk about these 3 questions. Rhea says, ask yourself the following 3 questions. When you can answer yes to all 3, you are ready to climb to the second step on the ladder of influence. And we're talking about serious character development. And you got to be able to answer all 3 of these questions. Not one of them, not 2 of them, all 3 of them. So let me cover all 3, and then we'll talk to you about each one of them. So the first one is the reality question. And the question is, am I dissatisfied with my current reality? am I dissatisfied with my current reality? So you got to say yes to that in order to be able to climb to this step, plus the next two. So let's see what the next two are, and then we'll talk about them. So the next one is the mindset question. The question is, do I believe it can get better? Do I believe it can get better? You got to answer yes to that one too, or you ain't getting to this step. The third question, the value question. And the question is, do I value growth more than I value remaining the same? Got to answer yes to that one too. So now if you can answer yes to all three of those, you in the right spot to start climbing this ladder of influence and climbing your way up to step 2. So the reality question, am I dissatisfied with my current reality? That question's easy. Many people aren't satisfied with their current reality. They know it. That may be exactly why you're listening to this podcast. And you're probably listening to it because you can answer all three of these questions right here. You probably already have, whether you actually thought about the questions or not. The second question, the mindset question, do I believe it can get better? That gets a little more difficult because sometimes Rhea says we have limiting beliefs and may not even be aware that we have those. She says belief drives behavior. If you don't believe it, you won't work to achieve it. And again, sometimes we have these limiting beliefs and may not even be aware of them. Pretty powerful. The third question, the value question, do I value growth more than I value remaining the same? It's where Rhea says the going gets tough at that question. Do I value growth more than I value remaining the same? Most people want improvement, but many don't want to make the required sacrifices. That's the reality right there. Everybody wants improvement. Everybody wants a better life, but they ain't willing to make the sacrifices. Let me see if I can remember this quote. I share it quite often from James Allen. In the very moment, I'm struggling to get it pulled out of my subconscious, but hopefully it's going to come to me when I start saying it. But basically, James Allen says, he says something about man, I can't think of it. Usually I say it all the time. I say it on stage. I say it everywhere. I'm just struggling at the moment. One of them things, when you get your mind wrapped around different things, you can't find it. But he says, oh, this is it. Here it comes. I knew if I rattled around long enough, it'd download. So James Allen said, we are anxious to improve our circumstances, but unwilling to improve ourselves. Therefore, we remain bound. That's a powerful quote from James Allen. I think he wrote that in, I think it was 1902, 1903, somewhere. He's got a series of books. You can download his books. You may not like most of them, but he's got some popular. One of them's really popular, and I can't even think of the name of it at the moment. I'm struggling with this today. I guess I hadn't talked about it recently. There's so much stuff in my brain that I'll never talk about that I know that I sometimes want to pull out. I can't get it to come out. When it needs to come out, it usually just download, but it ain't downloading at the moment today for whatever reason. So, but you can check him out. I know if you got an iPhone, I have an iPhone, you can go in there and download James Allen complete works, all of his books for free, and read them on your phone or whatever. And he's got some of them are really, really powerful, but there's nuggets in all of them. That's why I'm reading them. I peck away at it from time to time, but his most popular book, and you can do a search and search up James Allen, what's his most popular book, and it's something about speaking or thinking. I can't remember. I get those words confused when I'm trying to remember it. But anyway, I want to talk about these three questions again from my frame of reference. So the reality question, am I dissatisfied with my current reality? Pretty much my entire life, I've been dissatisfied with my current reality. I've always wanted more. I wanted to do more, be more, have more, all that sort of stuff. Still do. I mean, what I want today is I want to be speaking more. I want to be where I'm having to turn people down. I hadn't got to that point yet, but that's okay. I'm still enjoying life. I'm making the best of it either way. I can write more books, or I can go fishing, or I can go to the beach. I can go do whatever I want to do. So I'm in a good spot relative to that. But what I most want to do is help people. I love speaking to groups of people, especially blue collar groups that have never heard the kind of stuff I talk about, me and Rhea. And I love going to where a leader has discovered this stuff for themselves, and now maybe they want to introduce it to their team, and the team don't know what's coming. The leader doesn't know what the team's going to do in the room. They don't know how they're going to act, how they're going to respond. And that's who I like to speak to the most. And I wish I could do that every single day. And I'm not doing it every single day. I do it quite often and do it all over the country and beyond the U.S. borders. But that's just one of the ways that I'm dissatisfied with my current reality. But in the past, I was dissatisfied in all kind of ways. Dissatisfied with my job, dissatisfied with my pay, dissatisfied with my life. Certain points in my life, I was dissatisfied with my wife. Hadn't been that way in Rhea and I'll be together this year 25 years. So hadn't had that problem for a long time. But before Rhea, I had that problem several times. And I talk about that in some other podcasts. But that's the question you got to ask to continue to grow and develop your character. Am I dissatisfied with my current reality? And I was, and you probably are. That second question, do I believe my current reality is what Rhea's talking about when she says, do I believe it can get better? What she's talking about is, do you believe your current reality can get better? There's a lot of people so far down in the dumps, they don't believe it can get better. They don't believe it can get better. And one reason a lot of people don't believe it can get better is because they keep thinking that it's somebody else's responsibility to make their life better. I mean, there's an entire industry out there that wants to help people play the victim role, that wants to help people think they are the victim. That ain't me. I ain't playing on that team, because if anybody's a victim, they're only a victim of their own way of thinking. That's what people are a victim of. If they are a victim, they're a victim of their own way of thinking, because they don't have to be. You can pick any situation, any terrible situation anyone's been through. It could be any kind of abuse. It can be health. It can be wealth issues, poverty. It could be anything bad happening to somebody you can imagine. You can find millions of victims with a victim mindset who've been through that, whatever it is you're thinking about. But you can also go out and find people they won't be near as many of these folks, but they are some of these folks. Relative to every bad thing that's ever happened to somebody, you can go find somebody who's speaking about it on stage to fire other people up, to motivate and inspire people because of how they overcome whatever it was that happened to them. And Rhea's one of those people. She knows. I mean, she was sexually abused by her father horrifically and trafficked by him to strangers he'd meet off the internet. And she experienced unbelievable abuse from her biological father from age 12 to 19. She always says from the stage, as I got older, he got bolder. What that means in simple terms is from 12 to 19, the older she got, the worse it got. And at the end, it was really, really bad. And she's out motivating and inspiring other people to overcome whatever's happening in their life. She's writing this book about the ladder of influence, 5 steps for climbing to the next level and beyond. She's got her own podcast. If you're a regular listener, you know all that. If you're a new listener, I always got to throw in some of the things I say like a million times, because I don't ever know when somebody's tapping play for the very first time on a particular episode. If you don't know about her, go check out her story at RIASTORY.com. Be sure to watch her TEDx talk, and there's a TEDx menu button there to get you there. But the stuff I'm talking about now, she's a living example of it. I've been through some stuff. Mine was all self-inflicted just because I was an idiot. And I got books on that. I shared that one with you earlier. In my book, Defining Influence book, I write about a bunch of the stupid stuff I got wrong as a parent. I mean, there's all kind of things you can get wrong in your life. But relative to this question, do I believe my current reality can get better? You got to be able to say yes. I'm hoping in this moment, I've been trying to share with you some things to motivate and inspire you to answer yes. And you may be able to answer yes, but you may share this episode with someone that you know needs to hear it. They may not be able to say yes, so I'm trying to help them. And I'm talking about me. When I just do I believe my current reality can get better? When I really, really answered yes to that question, relative to my personal life, my own character development, was when I discovered the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People in 2008. My friend gave me that audio, my coworker, a 1-hour audio. I started listening to Stephen Covey, Dr. Stephen Covey, the author of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He started sharing the highlights of that book. And what I thought as I started listening was these questions right here. I didn't literally ask them, but I was thinking them subconsciously. Am I dissatisfied with my current reality? I was. That's why I kept listening. Do I believe it can get better? I did. That's why I kept listening. And then that third question, do I value growth more than I value remaining the same? That's why I've been reading every day for 17 years since that moment, because I do value growth more than I value remaining the same. And again, I was listening to an audio. When I say reading, again, it's audio. It could be audio, video, reading a real book, whatever. I'm talking about growth, because I listened to that audio over and over and over and over and over and over, because I did value growth more than I value remaining the same. But even though I could answer yes to those 3 questions, until I actually took action, when I actually started changing who I was, what I did, how I did it, who I did it with, or who I didn't do it with, until I actually started making real changes, nothing changed, not relative to my character. And it took a while. It took a while. So Rhea says, you don't always have to be taking big steps forward, but you must be consistently stepping forward. That's pretty powerful. She says, to be highly effective at developing your character, you must make daily growth a habit. She says, learn something every day. Then what I was just talking about a minute ago, she says, try to apply what you're learning every day. You got to think about it. You got to talk about it, think about it, and act on it. Think about how you can achieve better results next time. If you get it wrong, when I first started working on my temper, I didn't do a good job. When I very first started, the best thing I could do was after I blew my lid and acted like a fool and got angry, the best thing I could do was remember I had read about it, that I had a choice. I didn't have to get angry, but I had already gotten angry. But that was the way I started growing, was after I got angry and acted like an idiot, and I had studied it and learned about it and been listening to the audio over and over and over. But my first step was, after it happened, was to remember it didn't have to happen, and then work my way back from there to eventually get where I could prevent it from happening. But Rhea shares another quote in the book from Joe Castillo. He says, direction and destination can be planned before setting out, but the days of the journey are measured by how often the traveler strays from the path. That's pretty powerful right there. Basically, what old Joe's saying there is, you can plan where you're going and which way you're going to go to get there, but how long it's going to take you determines how often you get off track, how often you take a detour. All those kind of things going to delay you. You got to decide that for yourself. You can figure out where you're going, And you can also figure out when you get off track, when you stay on track. All those things are choices. Final quote that Ria shares in this chapter from Viktor Frankl. And it's Victor, in case you don't know, Viktor, Frankl, Frankl, Viktor Frankl. And he was a prisoner in a concentration camp back in World War II. And he's got a pretty powerful book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he's got some other books too, at least one more. I haven't read the other one. And he may have multiple books, but he was also a psychologist or psychiatrist or both, whatever. I don't really know the difference between those two. But he says this: when I can no longer change a situation, I'm challenged to change myself. That's powerful. When I can no longer change a situation, I'm challenged to change myself. And when a person figures that out right there, once they figure out that they can change themselves and they actually do change themselves, what happens is they're able to change their situation. But a lot of people focus on changing their situation, and they can't change their situation. But they can change themselves. And then it's kind of weird when you change yourself, you actually change your situation. Because you are a component of your situation. But most of us are looking outwardly. You hear me always talk about how easy it is to look out the window and see what everybody else should do. But the problem is we need to look in the window and see what we should do. That's what I'm talking about. So that's a powerful quote in itself. And a final thought from Ria: personal transformation won't be quick or easy, but it will be worth it. Your life can change to a level you can't even comprehend. If you're fairly new to this, or maybe you're not new, maybe you've been reading this stuff for 10 years, but you really ain't changed. Like for me, I read for 4 years, but I really hadn't changed. Not my character. I had changed my behavior a little bit to be better at doing what I was doing, which was facilitating process improvement teams, lean manufacturing, Kaizen teams, week after week after week. And I had gotten better at implementing what I was learning into those teams so that I was able to lead the teams better, and I was able to get better results with and through the teams. But I hadn't started working on me yet. Personal transformation won't be quick or easy, but it will be worth it. Took me 4 years to realize I need to look in the mirror. I need to get work on the guy in the mirror. That guy's got some issues. That guy's got some stuff that's holding him back. And then when I did, day after day, slowly and methodically, my life started to change, personally and professionally. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Join me next week. We'll continue this series. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen, or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership Series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.